Like many other shonen anime, One Piece also features power-up transformations for its characters, but unlike most series, these moments in One Piece feel more meaningful and rare. Each transformation usually marks a major turning point in a battle, whether it's for the hero or the villain. Over the years, we've witnessed some crazy transformations by Luffy as well. Each one has helped him push past his limits and completely change the course of his fights. Also, it makes sense that all these forms have some strengths and some weaknesses. In this video, we'll take a closer look at Luffy's transformations and explore what makes each of them strong and where they fall short. We'll also rank them from weakest to strongest, so make sure to stick around till the end. Starting with base form Luffy, which makes the most sense. While this technically isn't a transformation, it's still the form Luffy spends most of his time in, and the one he started his pirate journey with. Over the years, Luffy has gotten insanely strong, as he's learned to rely on more than just his devil fruit. Thanks to his mastery of Haki, even his base attacks now pack serious power. Because of all the experience and training he's gained, Luffy is still a dangerous fighter, even without using any of his forms. But this base state could only take him so far. He needed more power, which led to his first real transformation back in the Enies Lobby arc against Blueno. Even though his base form is stronger than ever now, it still sits on the lower end of his overall power scale. Next up, we have Water Luffy, which is technically still base Luffy but with water. During Luffy's fight with Crocodile, he figures out that the only way to counter the Sand fruit is to soak himself in water. This leads to the creation of Water Luffy, a funny yet clever form where he fills his rubber body with water to hit Crocodile. It might look silly, but it shows how creative and quick thinking Luffy can be in battle. Even then, Water Luffy wasn't enough to defeat Crocodile, and Luffy had to come up with another plan. Since this form only worked against Crocodile, it's seen as the weakest among all his forms. Still, many fans look back at Water Luffy with a smile, remembering a time when his funny and simple tricks were enough to get him through battles before the world of Haki, Gear 5, and Awakenings took over. Now that we've discussed his base form and Water Luffy, let's move forward with his transformations. Luffy's first real transformation in the series was Gear 2, which he uses against Blueno during their fight at Enies Lobby. By controlling the flow of blood through his body and speeding it up, he sends more energy and nutrients to his muscles, making him faster and stronger than before. This rapid flow also causes steam to pour out of his body, giving the form its signature look, but Gear 2 puts a heavy strain on his body. It burns through his food and energy reserves quickly, so he can't stay in it for long. Using it excessively can leave him extremely hungry, and may even cause him to collapse for a while. The form was enough to crush Blueno, but it still couldn't take down Rob Lucci in their fight at Enies Lobby. After Gear 2, it makes sense that we discuss Gear 3 next. Just like Gear 2, this transformation also uses the special properties of Luffy's rubber body, but instead of speeding up his blood flow, this one works as a short burst of power. Luffy bites his thumb to create an opening, then blows air into his bones, inflating his arm to a massive size. When inflated, his arm becomes as large as a giant's and hits with incredible force, which is strong enough to destroy buildings with a single punch. During his fight with Rob Lucci, Luffy's attack was powerful enough to blow apart a huge part of Enies Lobby. But once the air leaves his body, he runs out of energy and shrinks down to a small childlike form, losing a lot of stamina in the process. After this, we have a combination of both these forms. At some point during the Straw Hat Pirates' journey through the first half of the Grand Line, Monkey D. Luffy learns how to use Gear 2 and Gear 3 simultaneously. Although this form isn't given a specific name, the transformation is first seen during Luffy's fight with Gecko Moria. Fans might even call it an unofficial Gear 4, or perhaps Gear 3.5. It was soon made obsolete when Luffy started using Haki and his actual Gear 5, but for the Thriller Bark arc, it was sufficient. To defeat the overarching antagonist of the Thriller Bark arc, Luffy uses both of his first two Gear transformations to unleash a technique known as Gum Gum Giant Jet Shell. Before the time skip, this attack is said to have had adverse effects on Luffy's lifespan. However, this no longer seems to be the case, as Luffy consistently combines these gears to create new attacks in the new world. That being said, the Gear 2 Gear 3 combo ranks in the middle of this list because Gear 4 rendered it somewhat obsolete. Next up, we have Nightmare Luffy. During the events of Thriller Bark, Gecko Moria became a serious threat to the Straw Hats. Even Gears 2 and 3 weren't enough to bring him down. While Moria wasn't that strong on his own, his Devil Fruit powers made him extremely dangerous. But those same powers turned against him when Luffy absorbed 100 shadows and transformed into Nightmare Luffy. This form gave Luffy a massive boost in size and strength, making him physically stronger than ever before. In his fight against Oars, he was able to stop Oars' punch head-on and even toss him around with ease. The form didn't last long, but its power left a huge impact, and it's still remembered as one of Luffy's strongest transformations. Nightmare Luffy was definitely something else, but the next addition on this list is even more exciting. Next up, we have Tankman. All of Luffy's Gear 4 forms follow the same concept as Gears 2 and 3, but take things to a much higher level by using Haki to fuel both power and defense. These transformations push his body to its absolute limits and turn his rubber powers into something far more intense. Among these forms is the huge and funny-looking Tankman, which inflates Luffy's body to an enormous size. The original version is never fully shown, but the Manpuku version makes its first appearance during the Whole Cake Island arc, when Luffy faces off against Charlotte Cracker. In this form, Luffy becomes incredibly tough and solid, almost like a living fortress. He can absorb and deflect Cracker's strongest biscuit attacks without taking any serious damage. The sheer size of Tankman also allows him to trap and launch his enemies using the power of his inflated body. However, this increase in size comes with one big drawback. The form is slow and heavy, which limits his mobility and makes it hard to use in fast-paced battles. Because of that, Tankman is seen as the weakest among Luffy's Gear 4 forms. But that doesn't mean it's useless. When Luffy needs to defend himself or wear down his opponent, Tankman can hold the line like no other. It might not be flashy or versatile, but it shows how creative Luffy can be to turning even his size into a weapon. After this, we have Snakeman, which is one of Luffy's strongest transformations, and becomes key in his fight against Charlotte Katakuri, one of the Big Mom pirates. In this form, Luffy coats his limbs with armament haki and keeps his body lean to maximize speed. Normally, he relies on creativity and endurance, but Snakeman turns him into a blur of motion built purely for offense. To overcome Katakuri's powerful observation haki, Luffy uses Snakeman to strike with unpredictable attacks that twist and curve faster than the eye can follow. It pushes both his speed and reaction time to the limit. While the form lacks defense, it makes up for it with sheer aggression. Snakeman is made to end the fight quickly, either by victory or defeat, and if it had better defense, it could rival even the Emperors of the Sea. We are down to the last two forms, and I'm sure all of us are ready to know about them. On the second, we have Boundman. Boundman is Luffy's main Gear 4 form, and stands out as the strongest in terms of raw power. It uses the muscle balloon technique combined with dense armament haki to create a tough armored version of Luffy that still keeps his rubber flexibility. In this state, he can unleash some of his most destructive moves like the Kong Organ and King Kong Gun. While it's slower than Snakeman, Boundman makes up for it with heavy hits and solid defense, making it Luffy's most balanced and durable form. He first used it during his battle with Don Quixote do Flamingo, who already had the power of an awakened Devil Fruit. Boundman allowed Luffy to match and eventually overpower him, proving why this form was his strongest before awakening his Devil Fruit. Gear 4 continues to evolve even after its debut, as shown in the Elbaf arc. Until now, Luffy could only use Gear 4 on his whole body, but he recently learned to focus it on a single part. When the Sun God of Elbaf attacked the crew, Luffy used this new mini Gear 4 to break through a massive mirror wall and free everyone. Instead of coating his entire body with haki, he concentrated the power in one arm for a powerful strike. Fans loved this move as it brought back the feel of Luffy's old fighting style, but on a much stronger level. It also hints that his other Gear forms might evolve too, though Luffy hasn't used this version again since that battle. Lastly, we have Gear 5. At the end of the Wano arc, Luffy finally awakened his Devil Fruit, the human fruit model Nika. This awakening unlocked his full power and transformed him into the mythical sun god, with white hair, skin, and clothes, and glowing red eyes. Known as Gear 5, this form is easily the strongest of all, and its power depends only on Luffy's imagination. In this state, Luffy can give the properties of rubber not just to himself, but to everything around him, turning the battlefield into his playground. With this power, he can stand against the strongest pirates in history. However, Gear 5 puts a heavy strain on his body, and once it runs out, he turns into an old man, completely drained. Still, it's worth it when facing monsters like Kaido or the world government's top fighters. And as always, a good meal of meat can bring him back to full strength. That's it, folks. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything. And if you liked this video, click on the next one that's appearing on your screen. Go ahead, click it.